This episode is sponsored by FightFitLifestyle.com. Go to FightFitLifestyle.com to get awesome merchandise, gear, and even CBD products as well. All right, Ramiz, thank you for taking your time here with me today. How are you doing, man?
I feel great, brother. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I'm exciting time for MMA right now. Let me get right before we get in and talk about, Max Griffin real quick. I want to get your thoughts on this past weekend, UFC 254, Khabib retiring. But first and foremost, that great performance against Justin Gaethje, submitted him in the second round. What was your thoughts on that fight and what's kind of going through your mind right now with his retirement?
I think it was an incredible fight, first and foremost. I think he definitely cemented himself as one of the greatest fighters to ever step into that cage, let alone that performance,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Justin Gaethje is not an easy guy to deal with. And he put Justin Gaethje to sleep from side control to mount, from mount, jumping and setting up a triangle. It was like a triangle setup to an arm bar, back to a triangle, high-level stuff. Stuff that you just don't pull off on another high-level fighter. I mean, how many times do we see that, a triangle setup from mount in a championship fight or even a top 10 or a top 5 fight? It's very rare. I mean, extremely rare. So just for that, I have to just completely tip my hat and just be in awe at that guy's performance. I mean, Gaethje was bombing on him with leg kicks, trying to catch him with hooks, everything like that. And it's taking absolutely nothing away from Gaethje. It's just the caliber fighter that Khabib Nurmagomedov is, man. I mean, I don't have anything to say except that it was amazing. And I'm just very fortunate to be able to watch, to witness it, and watch it. And like I said, that guy's definitely something special.
Well, that's the thing about Khabib is he'll find a way to make you fight his fight. He'll take it into his territory no matter what. And you mentioned those leg kicks from Justin, because I felt like if there's going to be a spot where Gaethje can make it really dangerous, it's those leg kicks. You saw in the Tony Ferguson fight. Even in his loss against Dustin Poirier, I mean, Dustin had to have help walking out after that, leaving the octagon after because of those dangerous kicks. But with Khabib, he just knows how to adjust, and he knows how to get you into that realm. So breaking down that transition you just talked about from mount into the triangle, because I know grappling's a strong point of your background. When you're looking at the technique, just break that down a little bit for people who tune in, just to kind of give them more of like, okay, how did he succeed with that?
Yeah, for sure. So I know that in the first round, he was trying to set it up a little bit. It looked like he was going for an arm bar. And it looked like he started to bait him in a lot to it, especially in the first round. So in the second round, he found that success where he actually jumped to mount with that triangle setup. I mean, that's very, very hard, because in that transitioning period where you're trying to jump that triangle onto mount, you could easily get swept, reversed, rolled. And while you're trying to lock your legs up, they could easily defend against that. As you saw, Gaethje took the proper precautions in putting his hand up to his neck to try to stop that. But I mean, once Khabib made that adjustment to go into the arm bar, then back into the triangle, once he rolled, it was just game over. Once he started to grab his foot, start to cinch it in, and I just knew right away. I was like, oh man, that is deep.
Yeah, and it also looked like Gaethje had tapped several times before the ref had stepped in.
Unfortunately, it's very unfortunate, man. It's something that I've had happen with a few of my previous opponents. I mean, I do not envy, or I do not wish to ever have a referee's job. It is one of the hardest jobs in the world to have, because you mess up a fight, you will be shunned just probably till the end of time, and of course, if you do your job, you do the right thing, very seldomly will you be praised for it. But yeah, it was one of those things that I think definitely the ref dropped the ball. I mean, man, that was right in front of his eyes. Gaethje was tapping.
Well, and I mean, what can even be really, I mean, obviously you could say what could be done different, but as far as like, is there any, like, it takes me back to George St. Pierre, Matt Hughes. It was the right call because Matt Hughes actually, I mean, he had nowhere to tap. And, you know, he was deep in that armbar, so he just said tap, tap. I mean, is there any where to fix that with the ref looking at these grappling transitions, or is it just so plain to see that it's like, okay, he saw it and decided not to jump, even though it was clear? Because it looked like 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 taps right there from our angle.
I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I mean, our angle was the angle that actually saw the referee as well. So, like I said, I mean, maybe more experience, maybe grappling experience for these refs, maybe by retired fighters to ref these fights. Like I said, I don't have the answer to that. The only thing that I could do is give suggestions. I do not envy their job at all. I do not. The only thing I could do is just drop suggestions. So one of my suggestions would be probably a better equipped referee in terms of training and competing, so they could definitely see these things. Because I mean, man, if it's right in front of you, you have to be able to catch it. You know, if you can't catch it and stop it in time, you're going to get people hurt. I mean, thank God, you know, submission, it'll take a very long time to do a lot of irreversible damage. Fortunately for Gaethje, it wasn't anything well over 10 or 15 seconds. That would have been a very, very bad situation. But yeah, I mean, definitely that's one of my suggestions, is to try to get better trained referees.
Well, you saw the emotion right immediately after with Khabib, just, you know, breaking down, and they've shown you know, photos of Michael Jordan, you know, of course, lost his father that year before when he won the title, and you just see they kind of link the photos together. Just talk about that, and just seeing Khabib, and I mean, such a great emotional speech after. I mean, him and his father's bond. I know you have a great bond too with, you know, your dad, and just talk about that.
Yeah, it was definitely a very beautiful moment. Like I said earlier, it's something that I'm very, very happy that I got to witness, you know. And 100%, you know, that guy, his father was his mentor, his coach, his father, his older brother, his best friend. I mean, they had a very beautiful relationship from what I've seen through the TV, and from what I've also heard, you know, through many people that I've trained with who have trained with Khabib. They all said the same thing. They said that this guy is really like a gem. You know, he's just a gem. Him and his father's relationship was a thing of beauty. It was a thing of, you know, it was like I said. I mean, it's just something that when you see it, you just understand that it's something very beautiful. It's a beautiful bond. So those emotions were absolutely warranted. And like I said, it doesn't change the way that I look at Khabib. It doesn't change a way that I look at another man, because, you know, we're all human at the end of the day, and we all face setbacks, and we all face, you know, our calamities and things that are major to us. So like I said, I mean, it was definitely, it did get me choked up a little bit.
Well, this is a fighter who's faced quite a bit of adversity throughout his career, just through injuries. You know, there was a time where we were like, when will we see him fight? He was constantly had that knee injury, and the way he was able to bounce back, of course, eventually, you know, become a champion, just speaks volumes of just how his character is, and just how, I mean, his mindset as well. He's not going to give up. He's not going to give up. Will Harris talks about that on Joe Rogan's podcast, because, you know, he worked with them on his film over there, and it's just, you know, there's nothing that's gonna break him. Do you feel like this, you know, we have seen you know, retirements in MMA and then fighters come back, but do you think this is probably goodbye? You know, he'd said, you know, made a promise to his mom, and it's just hard for him to do this without his dad.
I think so. You know, from that region of the world, especially what I've witnessed myself, you know, with my family, that I have a lot of family ties and family members who still currently live in Eastern Europe. I mean, I think, and I would also like to hope for Khabib's sake, just because of what a legacy he's left behind. You know, legitimately, in my eyes, he has nothing left to prove. You know, I mean, of course, a super fight with GSP, but I mean, I want to see GSP retired too. You know, there's these gentlemen who are elite of the elite, who are legendary, they do not need to come back. You know, they don't. They've done everything that they had to do. They're more than likely secured with funds, and I want to see them excel and succeed in a new chapter in their life and enjoy their life post fighting. So that's the part of me that sees it and that really understands and wishes for them to just enjoy their retirement and just move on and enjoy time with their family and do other things, you know, that unfortunately might have been taken away from them through their fighting career. So I'm a big proponent of that, to see people move on.
Well, and I'm sure we haven't seen the last of Khabib. Of course, he has family members, relative cousins that fight. They're under the UFC banner as well. So I'm sure, you know, we'll see him more probably in that role, maybe becoming more of a head coach type, which I'm intrigued to see, because I mean, what better way than to learn from his mind. So I don't think we're going to probably see the last of him, but it is kind of bittersweet too, you know, because while I'm right there with you on, like, he didn't really have anything else to prove. You know, we've been so kind of fortunate for so long in many sports just to get to see these greats, but especially here in MMA. And, you know, you never know. And DC talked about this. You just never know when the next time you're going to get to see him. So what were some key highlights for you watching Khabib that really just stood out the most?
You know, just the way the man conducted himself inside and outside the cage, his level of professionalism, and him being true to his colors, to his cause, and to what he really feels. You know, it's very empowering, you know, especially in this day and age where people change their opinions or they're ridiculed for what they think. And we live in a very weird day and age, to say the least. So to see somebody who really sticks to their guns and won't wilt under media pressure or pressure from other people, that's something that's very powerful to me, you know, because I've always been a person who's believed in sticking up for your rights, for what you believe in. You know, you're human. You know, there are 7 billion people in this world. No two people are gonna be the exact same, you know. So I think we got to get over this, you know, of thinking that everybody's one and the same. You know, I think what's beautiful about this world and so amazing about it is that everybody's different, you know. I don't mind that. I like difference, you know. I like the diversity and seeing how other people live and seeing how other people interact with one another. So, you know, that's definitely a big thing that made me a huge fan of Khabib.
Yeah, and just even you look after a year ago, that Dustin Poirier fight, you know, winning that fight, but, you know, back in supporting his, you know, foundation, Dustin Poirier. I mean, you could tell it really just definitely comes from the heart, and then could be really compared. He's just an ultimate competitor, you know. It has been since he was a kid. And even with the Gaethje fight this past Saturday too, I mean, just that even heartfelt message to, you know, Justin, who's very close with his parents and as well. So definitely going to miss, you know, seeing that, but I think that legacy, I think you'll pass that down to a lot of his teammates, or hopefully others, you know, in the sport, to see that and like, look, you know, it's a competition. Of course, there's going to be grudges in that, but we kind of need that. We need that in this world. You know, some of that humbleness, and just put, like you said, the differences aside and just find a middle ground. Now, speaking of Justin Gaethje, where does he go from here? You know, he came into this fight on a good winning streak, interim champion. You know, I don't know what medical suspensions will happen if he has any. Do you think he jumps right back in there if the title's vacated, which it looks like it's going to be, of course? Would you give him another shot? You have Michael Chandler there. You still have Tony, or maybe do you have Poirier, McGregor, if they decide on that fight?
I would probably like to see Poirier and McGregor for the vacant lightweight title, and then, you know, make Justin Gaethje in there. I think that probably Michael Chandler needs to fight one person in the top 5. I wouldn't give him a direct title shot. That's just in my personal opinion. I wouldn't give him a direct title shot just because I think he's only coming off of one win, over Benson Henderson. The fight before he lost, I think, in the first round against one of the Pitbull brothers. So, you know, it's a very interesting picture, to say the least. The lightweight picture just got a lot more interesting, you know. So those are all fun fights, you know. If you pit any one of those guys against each other, you're going to get a dogfight. So, you know, I really look forward to it. I think they should do a little tourney style brackets and have those guys scrap it out, you know. So I think it's a very intriguing lightweight picture now.
Well, I think Michael Chandler agrees with you, though, about the tournament. He kind of proposed that on social media. And I think, you know, an unofficial tournament, I mean, makes sense. I mean, if McGregor-Poirier does become a thing, makes sense for that vacant title. I mean, Tony Chandler would be interesting to see. You know, Gaethje, Charles Oliveira. He's been waiting there in the wings. I was like, before Gaethje and Tony, I was thinking about Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje fight.
Or either one of them.
Yeah.
Tony Oliveira, Gaethje Oliveira.
Dan Hooker is still there in the mix as well.
So, I mean, this is just it's a stacked lightweight division. Make no mistake about it. And like I said, I really look forward to it. I think all of those top 10 guys, they can produce fight of the night type fights. So I mean, why not? You know, let's do it. I would love to see those fights.
You still got Nate Diaz, because here's the thing: after he posted about the jiu-jitsu of, you know, all those guys, Poirier and Justin Gaethje. But to be fair, I mean, anybody going against Khabib's style, I mean, he can make some really good people look not great. That's why he was as good as it. But you know, Nate's always there, whether it's a fight at 170 or if he wants to drop down to 155. I mean, can you see him being at all in the mix, or you just think he's just kind of still waiting for that super fight?
I can see him waiting for a super fight. You know, I think he'll struggle a lot because those guys, they're strong, man. They're strong and they have enough knowledge on the ground to probably neutralize his jiu-jitsu. And I mean, their striking is definitely very, very good. So like I said, for me personally, I want to see that top 10, that lightweight picture at the top 10. All those guys just scrapping against each other. You know, if they could set up a tourney style bracket for those men and have them fight, that would be amazing. You know, it would definitely be one of those things that I would pay big bucks to see. You know, I mean, each and every single one of those guys is championship material.
Well, it can kind of be like how a Grand Prix tournament, you know, Bellator's been doing it or had been doing it, probably did it for a long time, just a duration of the months, just setting up these big fights, because each one of these possible matchups are huge, could all be main events, whether, you know, it's fight night. I mean, even without a title on the line like they used to, some of these can be main event of UFC pay-per-view cards, definitely co-main events. So I think an unofficial tournament would make sense, because my thing is going back to, if they make Poirier McGregor, you know, will they want to wait for that when fans can really be in attendance, especially with Conor, because he has such that fan draw.
Yeah. But I don't want to wait. Personally, you know, like I said, I love to watch people compete, and especially in this day and age, you know, with everything going on, I think that, of course, you know, the fans definitely help and aid McGregor in his tactics, but it's also one of those things where I think the no audience really gives the fighter something to zone in and really focus on the fight and not the outside distractions. So I think we probably are going to get one of the best possible products that we can get. So, I mean, I would love to see a COVID era McGregor. So, I mean, I would love to see him fight for you 100% within the next, January, whenever they have it scheduled. I would love to see them fight.
Well, and it'd be interesting to see if that would happen on Fight Island. You know, that Fight Island dynamic is great, I feel. Like, just the atmosphere. I know there's not a lot, you know, there's no fans, although I think a couple of family members have been selected, members have been able to be there. But you didn't really need the fan. It's just the whole dynamic, the environment, the structure of it looks larger than life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've heard nothing but good about it, and I've gotten to speak to a few people who have actually competed on the cards over there, and they were very impressed. So it's one of those things that whenever they go back in the future, once I get my fight out the way, I would love to, down the road, of course, fly out to Abu Dhabi and get a fight over there on Fight Island.
Well, how about that co-main event? Robert Whittaker's win, unanimous decision over Jared Cannonier. I still wish we could have seen. I just would have loved to see 5 rounds. I feel like that's the main event. But what we saw from Robert Whittaker, I mean, the technical fight. His jab was on point the whole entire time. What did you think of his performance Saturday?
I was truly impressed with this performance, and like I said, Robert Whittaker is another one of those guys who's an extremely humble guy, who's a very down-to-earth guy. No talk, all serious, right down to business. So he's a guy that I have a ton of respect for. And I think it was a masterclass. It was a masterful performance from a world-class fighter in Robert Whittaker. So I think he did everything he had to do. He looks rejuvenated in there, and I'm very happy. It's good on him.
Well, and that's 2 back-to-back fights where you just, like you mentioned, the masterclass. Though the Till fight probably was a little bit slightly more closer, but still that striking is on point, and he never lacks composure in there. Even with Yoel, never loses composure, very precise. Before those fights, you would see more, and he still is explosive, but a lot more overly explosive with Jacare. But now it seems like, that maturity of a fighter, just taking the time and dial in against a guy who's very explosive and dangerous, and Jared Cannonier. What do you hope to see next for Whittaker? I mean, of course, people are alluding to him getting a rematch with Israel Adesanya. We'll see if that's what the UFC does next. But regardless, what do you ultimately hope to see?
I'm just interested to see Robert fight anybody.
Yeah.
I'll watch the Adesanya rematch. I'll watch him fight anybody else in the top 10. I'll watch him fight Paulo Costa. I always watch a Robert Whittaker fight. He definitely is another guy that I truly enjoy watching fights. So, like I said, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, and with Jared Cannonier, he had a couple moments in that fight, but this is definitely got to be just that learning experience, because, he's still a guy I look at that can make waves at 185 and other fights. But do you see him getting right back in there in the mix? And if you could play matchmaker for him, who would you possibly like to see, once he's healed and everything?
I'd like to see him probably mix it up with Kelvin Gastelum. If not Kelvin, I would like to see him mix it up maybe with either the winner or the loser of the Hermansson Till fight.
That would be a really good one.
If Till wins it would be good, but I don't know if I'd want to see the Hermansson rematch. I think I'd be a little bit more interested in seeing the Darren Till fight.
Well, and, also somebody who's still in the mix a little bit is, Jacare's got a fight coming up. We haven't seen him fight this year, so we'll see if he wins that. See if he may resurge right there. That would be kind of like getting that veteran. Or, you mentioned Paulo Costa. He doesn't have anything lined up, and it would be maybe a quicker resurgence. He's going to have to wait a little bit. But, if he can beat, Jared, that kind of could put him right there. And you still have Yoel around. You still have Yoel Romero around. We'll see what they want to do with him. But, I think any of those guys and Jared would be intriguing matchups. 185 is exciting. And you still have Derek Brunson, who is rising there and had a great August, over Edmund Shabazian. And, he's right there. So 185 it's getting very intriguing. So there's so many different matchups, even outside of the whole title picture, like we just said with lightweight. I think this is just an exciting time for MMA in general. That's why I always get giddy about it. Luckily, we had MMA this year.
Yeah, thankfully for that. Like I said, it definitely is a really interesting time for MMA, and I really look at every single division, and it's exciting. You see the top of the divisions, you see all killers, and even on the come up, you see a bunch of killers too. So, and the UFC has afforded everybody the opportunity to fight and make relatively quick comebacks. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the next couple months and going into 2021 pans out.
Well, let's talk about your fight, Max Griffin, coming up around the corner, Las Vegas, November 7th, correct? Fight night. Mention about Khabib's, adversity, and just, a lot of this sport comes adversity. And I know you faced your fair share even earlier this year, or mid this summer, where you were supposed to make your octagon debut. Going in November 7th now, I mean, are you at calm? Are you at patience? Just talk about going through all the ups and downs, but still getting out to finally make that long-awaited octagon debut, much anticipated.
For sure. It's a lot of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I would say definitely one emotion that I have started to hone in on a lot more, one
Mm-hmm.
feeling, is the feeling of just being calm,
Mm-hmm.
and just letting everything play out as it's supposed to play out, not trying to rush or overthink or anything like that, and because I realize, especially in this day and age with COVID and with everything going on, it was a really big eye opener, and it showed me that nothing is certain. You're not gonna be for certain fighting or anything like that until you're actually in the cage. So it definitely taught me a lot about patience
Mm-hmm.
and how to just be calm and just relax. And I think I was in June, I was displaying that a lot. I mean, when I went to the hotel, just did my interviews, worked out, went to sleep. That's about it. That was my regiment right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a regiment that I have no complaints or no issues with at all. I'm a very simple guy when it comes to this stuff. And I think that comes with the maturity of fighting and,
Mm-hmm.
going through all the battles that I had in LFA and just growing into the sport, just maturing. And, I want to be a mature fighter November 7th. Once I get my hand raised November 7th, I want to take all the lessons that I learned from November 7th moving forward and just build off of that win and build off of that performance and keep going, climbing up that UFC ladder.
Well, go back to the calmness, because I've been following your journey for a while now, and you've always seemed to have that calm, that composure. Is that just something you were raised with, grew up around?
Yeah, definitely. But especially now, I've just learned not to rush or overthink or just let it flow, just let it flow. And especially with the past events that have happened in my
Mm-hmm.
life, with my surgery, with the canceling of my last two fights, I guess I'm a lot more calmer now, and I know that of course, once I get into the cage, I have a job to do, and I'm gonna execute. I'm gonna accomplish the mission that I set out to do. So, November 7th, it doesn't change.
Well, and also you just posted yesterday about your military background, which might not a lot of people know. How long did you serve, and what do you feel that experience has helped you with MMA?
It's helped me tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
So I signed my contract with the United States Army Reserve back in 2012,
Mm-hmm.
October. So I was in what's called a DEP program,
Mm-hmm.
DEP, which is delayed entry process. So I guess during that time, they had a lot of people enlisting. So with that DEP program, they had me wait until they could slot me in for a good time to go into basic training. So I didn't go probably for the first 8 months of my career. I was just drilling. 6 to 8 months of my career, I was just drilling with my unit until I went to basic training, completed basic and job training, everything like that. But in terms of the experience, it's something that I do miss at times. I learned a lot from a lot of leadership traits and a lot of patience, man, because you get messed with so much. You think that it's going to be an action movie as soon as you enlist, but it's definitely the furthest thing from that. And it's something that was very eye-opening and something that I look back on, and I'm very happy that I went through it.
Do you feel, and not talking about the game plan with Max, but just do you feel patience will play a part in this fight? Sometimes he likes to rush forward. We saw with Alex Oliveira from time to time he will execute those takedowns, but Do you feel like there's going to be patient or like a filling out at all with him, or?
Maybe. I mean, of course, once we step into that cage, everything is subject to change. You could have a game plan, something happens, it goes out the window. But of course, I'm going to try to stick to the game plan as much as possible. And whatever it is, I'm just looking to execute, And, I definitely do see a patient, calculated Ramiz Brahimaj. I'm not going to rush anything or be foolish about what I have to do. So, I'm just going to go in there, do what I got to do. And whatever opportunity presents itself, I'm going to take it.
Well, what intrigues you the most about his style that you're interested to figure out? I was talking with Jason Witt last time about how, this is like a puzzle, opponents like a puzzle, and there's different things to solve. So what are you looking to solve in Max Paynegriffin?
I'm just looking to solve how to finish this guy, how to take him out. There's nothing more that I would love than to be one of the first people to finish him by submission, or even the second person to finish him by strikes in his UFC career. So like I said, just going in there and trying to put on a masterful performance if I can. That's something that I'm gunning for. But I'm just ready to go to war too. I already have it in my mind that I'm going to be in a war. So I understand what kind of a fighter he is. I know what he brings to the table. It's a style and it's a fight style that I have a ton of respect for, and an opponent that I have a ton of respect for.
Now, I know he's had a couple back-to-back losses. Do you feel like there will be any urgency on his side? Just because, you just never know with another loss, and he's going to really want to get that back.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I could see many different faces, many different styles of Max Griffin. I could see an urgent one. I could see a patient one. I could see one that's just going to be all out, So, I'm just mentally, physically prepared for anything that's going to happen November 7th. I'm also ready for an opponent change. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I've already mentally prepared myself for anything. I've prepared myself for any situation.
Well, that is the thing about this year for sure. The constant opponent change, which is kind of comes with the times we're in now, but sometimes even just with injury. And that's another place where I'm sure, that composure you've always had, because you've had that in LFA quite a bit, the last minute opponent changes. So one thing is you've been around to just cornering your fellow teammates in the UFC. So do you feel like there's going to be any jitters at all, just because you've been there, you've been backstage, you've walked out with, you were there with Charles Byrd when he made his debut. So do you feel like there's going to be any, or do you even think about that?
I'm sure, but it's one of those things that I'm ready to just accept it and feel it. You know what I mean? It's a part of the fight game. I always have those little butterflies whenever I get ready to make that walk down the cage. And then once I'm in the cage, everything just changes. It's an indescribable feeling, and a feeling that I love, and a feeling that I chase. It's an emotion that I chase. So November 7th, I don't see it any different. Maybe a little bit more nerves, a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be any different than my past fights.
Well, obviously, once again, no fans will be there. What's the smallest crowd you've ever competed in front of?
That's a good question. I want to say, I think when I fought in Louisiana, it was like a small ballroom. It was my amateur debut.
Was that GFA?
Yes. Yes, it sure was. I want to say, I think like 50 people were there.
Oh, wow. That would be like the reporters there at the Apex.
Yeah, that would probably be like the reporters, the cameramen, and the audio and everything like that.
I think you told me once, and maybe it was the same promotion, about your hotel stay there, and there was like cigarette burns. Yeah. And luckily you probably won't have that experience. But do you feel like those times you kind of look back and appreciate to where you're heading into now, and then kind of shape you as a fighter? Because you always hear fighters talk about those first early days where maybe it was at a carnival, maybe it was at a fair, so even does any of that kind of like, you look back and like, man, you know what? I'm kind of glad I went through that, because now, I'm here. I've made it. Or at least, I'm here at the UFC.
100%. It makes me grateful for everything, and it's also a good marker, because it shows me, hey, look how far you've come,
Yeah.
look at what you've done, look at what you've been through. I remember those days early on in my career when I didn't even make money for that fight.
Yeah.
So I mean, I wasn't even getting paid. The only thing that I got was, I think I got a $25 food allowance.
Oh man.
To go to one of the restaurants. I can't remember. I don't know if it was Texas Roadhouse or what it was in Louisiana. Where
There's not a lot there. I've been there. It was in Alexandria, wasn't it?
Yeah, in Alexandria. It was like I really forgot the name of the restaurant. I will have to call one of my old teammates and ask him. But they gave us a $25 food allowance just to eat there after weigh-ins, and I mean, it was definitely one of those stories that I love that I have. I mean, when I got to my room, the hotel toilet wasn't flushing. I mean,
there you go.
Yeah, so that was one way to kick it off. And then, like, well over a quarter, close to probably half of the carpet was missing. There were cigarette burns on my bed. It was definitely...
Your fight was with your hotel room first.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know how they say, your first fight is your weigh-in and then you fight the next day?
Yeah.
I think I had 3 fights total. I had the weigh-in, I had the hotel, and then I had the actual fight itself.
If you just had to add like bed bugs in there, that would be cherry on the top would be bed bugs.
Oh God, that would be horrible.
I could not imagine having to be quarantined in a hotel room like that.
No, that's probably closest thing I could think to like solitary confinement or a death sentence.
The glory days, man. It's the glory days. Well,
you need those tails.
You do need those tells. Well, coming back to the day of your fight, what is something that you like to kind of do with all your fights to kind of get in that zone, or maybe just kind of kick back a little bit before you make that walk?
Man, I just like to sleep. I like to sleep a lot. I like to also go outside, take a look at the cage, take a look at the walkway, everything like that, and just feel it. I like to go in there and just feel the cage panels, feel the cage itself, feel the mat, and just know what I'm stepping into. It's always been like a little ritual of mine. And then, of course, whenever I'm backstage, I go to sleep for a little bit and just listen to some relaxing music and get ready for war.
And I know you're a music fan. We've always talked about your music. What's been on your this training camp's playlist?
Old school Nas, man. I've been
really
listening so much. I've been listening to Nas so much this whole training camp. I've always been a fan, a huge fan of his lyrics, and they touch me. They're really deep. A lot of those lyrics, they have meaning to them and substance. So it's something that this whole camp, Nas has been on repeat.
He kind of always felt like he was ahead of his time.
100%.
Music.
100%.
Well, finally, Ramiz, what do you think about that main event on your card? Finally, we're going to see Thiago Santos taking on Glover Teixeira. Who do you got in that? How do you think it's going to end?
Man, I really do not know. Glover Teixeira, the times that I've counted him out, he's shown what kind of a veteran and what kind of a straight-up pit bull he really is. And then, I mean, after Thiago's last performance against John Jones, you can't really count that guy out. But I think if at any point in time, if Glover can do what he did to Smith in this fight, he stands a very good chance, especially if that fight hits the ground. I mean, Glover has some extremely underrated. And just, I think Thiago Santos is in for a fight. And I also think that if Thiago Santos comes back highly motivated, which I have no doubt that he will, it's going to also be a long night for Glover. So I'm expecting fireworks in that main event.
Well, either one's got to be close right there in that title conversation. And I'm excited for it. I'm just ready to see it. I'm excited to see your official, finally, much into Octagon debut. And Ramiz, where can people find you? And anything you would like to say to your fans out there?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the support, for everybody that's been watching my journey since my amateur career, since my early pro LFA days, whatever you want to call it. I thank you guys so much. And there's a lot more in store for everybody. So November 7th, nothing changes. It's just going to be another electrifying performance by me. And absolutely, if you guys want to find me on Instagram, Ramiz B170. It's my Instagram handle. Twitter handle is 170 Ramiz, and Ramiz Brahimaj is my Facebook.
Oh, and I have to ask one more final thing, because I know you had a couple of possible nicknames thrown at you out there on social media. Have you chosen one? Or are you going to finally?
And I haven't yet, but I'm telling you, man, I love the Bronx Boa. You know,
I think it fits you. I think it.
I do think so.
So we'll stew on it, think about it. But regardless, congrats, man, on finally getting this fight set. And I know everyone's looking forward to seeing your debut and just seeing this matchup. It's a very intriguing matchup. I think it might have froze a little bit.
And I can't wait.
All right, man. Well,
it's one that I look forward to, and I cannot wait.
All right, man. Well, we're looking forward to it as well. So thank you, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you on November 7th.
Thank you, sir. Take it easy, Charlie. See you soon, brother.